Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Govberg, and thanks for logging on. Today we are looking at the Omega Speedmaster Professional Moon Phase Chronograph in stainless steel. You can see this complicated Omega Speedmaster Professional chronograph on our website, govbergwatches.com. And if you enjoy these videos, please subscribe to our app, Govberg On Time, for the latest news, views, reviews, and multimedia of luxury watches. On my wrist, 6 1/3 inches, 16 centimeters in circumference. This is the classic profile, that is, the silhouette, the size, the proportions of the traditional 42mm Omega Speedmaster Professional Moon watch. All of the refinements are within rather than without the case, which means 42mm across the round of the case. The watch is actually a little bit slimmer than the traditional moon watch, thanks to a domed sapphire that takes off some of the thickness added by the conventional moon watch's acrylic domed sapphire, domed crystal. So this one is 13.5mm rather than the 15 plus of the traditional moon watch. Now the watch can be measured two different ways, lug to lug. There's the traditional way where you actually measure it between the ends of the lugs, and that gives you a measurement of 48mm, or you can take into account that this does have solid end links. So the outcropping horn of each end link on each side, when measured extremity to extremity across the wrist, actually gives you a very contemporary 53mm. So again, this is a traditional Omega moon watch case size, but it has a very robust modern wrist presence with this solid end link bracelet. Now the heft is self-evident. Omega's contemporary bracelets are very substantial, and with a milled out clasp, this watch does have a satisfying luxury watch premium pull on the wrist. You can see that the clasp itself features engraved Omega marquee and logo, as well as Speedmaster Professional notation. Twin trigger release means it's very secure when closed, and it does come from that generation of milled out Omega clasps that really forced Rolex to rethink the quality of its clasps in the early to mid 2000s. Now you can see that the 3-link bracelet is beautifully contrast finished with alternating polished and satin finished links. You can also see that the flanking members, that is the absolute shoulders of the links, are high polished. It's effective use of metallic contrast rather than use of two-tone gold to really set a watch apart with a jewel-like appearance. Now moving inboard from the black tachymetric scale, you can see what sets the Speedmaster Moon Phase apart. Now it is a Speedmaster Professional, as you'll see noted on the dial at 6 o'clock, but it's the compound moon phase and radial date at 12 o'clock that gives this watch its identity. Now there are some upscale features that set this one apart even from the garden variety moon watch, even without seeing that dial at 12 o'clock. You'll notice that rather than having crimped flanges, as the standard moon watch does, this one has polished chapter rings to each of the sub-registers. Now when you do bring the moon phase and the date into the equation, you'll note that they're beautifully rendered and add a sort of cruciform balance to this watch that makes it very elegant, perhaps the most romantic of all Speedmaster variants, because you have the aura, the heritage, and the backstory of the moon missions, of the Apollo missions and Apollo Soyuz, of trips to Skylab, to Mir and the International Space Station, rides on the shuttle, but at the same time you have the superfluous and whimsical image of the moon phase itself, called the most romantic of complications. So you have a watch with a romantic history and a romantic presentation, and you can see on the flank the watch is adjusted using pusher correctors in the side of the case. Nevertheless, the watch does still enjoy the same 5 ATM water resistance as the standard Speedmaster Professional moon watch. Now there are some changes on the case back, because whereas the standard moon watch does not have a display case back, this one does. Sapphire capped, you're looking at the caliber 1866, 18 joules, cam and lateral clutch chronograph. It chugs away at a traditional 21,600 vibrations per hour. It does have a somewhat above average 48-hour power reserve in its manually wound autonomy between windings, and it's actually a very nice watch to wind, as the detent and the creamy quality, as well as the audible clicks of the ratchet, make it a very satisfying manual winder, and that's not universally true of manual wind watches. So it's both satisfying to wind and satisfying to look at, as some of the Derlin or synthetic elements of the conventional caliber 1861 are here eschewed for rhodium plated brass. And you can see that it's actually a nicely put together movement that's quite attractive in spite of the fact that it has very utilitarian origins. This movement was chosen by NASA not so much because it's pretty, although it is, but because you could absolutely beat it to heck and it would still function in space. But this is a watch that mixes equal measures of whimsy and practicality. It's everything that a Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch is, albeit with a sapphire crystal on both sides and the most romantic of complications at 12 o'clock. You can see it and you can purchase it on our website, govbergwatches.com.